In this video, we're going to cover further concepts within Figma, including auto layout and how to use the community plugins to make your designs come alive. So in a previous video, we created this basic wireframe for a shoe app. This is the details page with placeholder imagery. So what we're going to do is replace these with actual photos of shoes. We are then going to use artificial intelligence to create a realistic description of the shoe. And then we're going to format things with auto layout, and we're going to create components. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get some imagery. So there is a plugin called Unsplash that has tons of images that you can use in your prototypes. So if you type in Figma community and then you search for Unsplash, you should find this. There's tons of other plugins that are super helpful. So after you click try it out, it will start a new file. But in other files, you can go to the plugin by clicking the resource section and then clicking run. So go to plugins and then click run under Unsplash. And then you can search for different things. So I'm going to search for a shoe. And now we have all these shoes. I like this Nike shoe, so I just drag that on there. I also like this one and this one. Perfect. So now I have my images. So now we're going to cover how we can resize these. So these are all very large, so I'm just going to select all of them holding shift and making a selection, and then we're going to hold shift and we're going to drag these down to make them a bit smaller. Let's make them even smaller. That looks good. So now we're going to crop them. So if you double click, it opens up the property panel. You can also just click on the image under fill, and we're going to go to crop, and now we're going to crop in, and we're going to crop so it's closer to the shape behind it. And then click enter, and then with this shape we're going to change its fill color to something closer to that background. That looks good. Let's crop this even better. And now I'm going to repeat the process for the other image placeholders. Okay, that looks good. Now what we're going to do is add a auto layout. Auto layout is super helpful for setting a structure for your design. Once the design is getting higher fidelity, it's good to have auto layout. It's also great if you want to resize, like if I wanted to create a iPad dimension for this app or a desktop version. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the shoe and its background, and we're going to click auto layout. And now what we're going to do is we're going to open that frame. We're going to delete the background rectangle. And then for the frame, we're going to give it a fill color similar to the background of the shoe. That looks good. I'm going to duplicate that process for both of these here. Okay, that's looking good. Now we're going to give the entire frame a auto layout. So I click the frame for the iPhone, and I'm going to click auto layout, and notice everything got messed up. The reason for that is we have it set to wrap. So you have the options of wrap. You can do horizontal layout and vertical layout. So let's start with horizontal, and we can go forward from there. So let's just make this a little bit better. So first thing I'm going to do, you notice that these are stacking because they're inside a parent frame that's set to vertical layout. So I'm going to click both of these, and I'm going to again create another auto layout. Okay, so now I'm going to go to horizontal layout. And so since there is this parent layout, auto layout here, the frames inside adjust to the auto layout that's defined here. So that looks good. I am also going to go to fill container, and notice how this doesn't seem like it's filling. So we also have to apply the fill container to both of the frames inside. Fill container, that looks good. Now the space between, I want 10. So now there's 10 pixels of padding in between them. So now for this button, I'm going to create a auto layout as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the button. And I am going to draw out a frame. And now I'm drawing it inside there. So make sure you draw the frame out just below. And as you see, the design adjusts. So I have that. We're going to assign a fill to this black. And we're going to make sure it fills the container. And now we're going to add the text by now. And that's inside the frame. And we are going to make sure it is aligned. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to assign an auto layout here. And that's looking good. So if I resize that, that stays centered. That looks great. Now we're just going to configure the corners. Okay, and now we're going to call this a BTN for button. And now the next concept we're going to cover is creating a component. So when you create a component, then you can reuse it inside your file. So I'm going to click this option up here, create a component. So now this is a component. So when you go to assets, you have instances of buttons, so you can reuse them throughout the app. If I make a change to the component parent, which is here on the screen, if I say change the fill color, it changes all the instances. So it's a great way to make quick updates throughout the app that will apply to all of your pages. Okay, so there's still some issues here. This is not how we would like it. So I'm going to go and I am going to select all of these indicators, and I am going to create yet another auto layout, and we're going to make sure that it is horizontal. That looks better. Okay, now we're going to select that text layer and select this frame. We're going to do another auto layout, and we're going to then do horizontal layout, and we are going to fill container. And now what we're going to do is align center is not exactly what we want, so we're going to double click this, and so now it is set of filling with space in between. It's not the most intuitive, but it solves that issue. So this is looking much better now. So we're going to go to this text layer, and we're going to make sure that this is filling the container. This we're going to make sure it fills container. And so now this is looking good. So now as you drag this out, the text expands, but you'll notice that this also needs to be filling, and now it's looking better. But let's have the images make sure that they stay centered. So you double click the image, or you click command click to get to the exact image itself, or go into the layers and make a selection, and then click this for constraints. So now it should be aligned center. Let's do the same thing here. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, this looks much better. This is how we wanted it, which will make it easier to be formatted for further dimensions of desktop or iPad or things like that. So there's still some cleanup I want to do. So the space in between each item, I want to have that set to 10. That looks a little bit better. Let's change this paragraph text to have something more realistic. So what I'm going to do for that is go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a large language model. It's artificial intelligence. It will write a custom description for this paragraph. So any text related thing, I usually go to ChatGPT. There are plugins to use it directly inside of Figma, but for the sake of this video, let's write something here. Okay, so it gives this paragraph, copy it to the clipboard, and come back here and paste it in and type it in. Beautiful. So this is super long. In the text properties, you can click this and you can truncate it. So I'm going to click truncate, and now it truncates to the size of the text box here, which that looks pretty nice. Maybe we could even add like a read more button. below it. So let's do that. I'm going to type out read more. We're going to make this like a link color. That looks good. Also, this fill color, let's create a fill style. So I'm going to click here, and we're going to click the plus button, and we're going to call this, let's just call it BTN for button, and we're going to create the style. And so now I can go to this button that we have, and since this is the parent component, we can go here and we can click button, and nothing should have changed. However, it just inherited this style. So let's make this underline. So we go back here to the text properties with it selected, and now it has this little underline. Let's make this 12, looks good, and let's drop it on in. Okay, and now I'm going to actually take this text style and this text style, and we're going to create a auto layout to adjust the space between this. So you can customize the space here. You can also do so here in the properties panel. So that looks good. But now let's give it some padding bottom. So I can also do that by going to individual padding, and let's do a bottom of 10. So that looks great. So that looks good. The last thing I want to do is I want to move the buy button all the way to the top, or how about right below the title, something like that. So, and let's adjust it. Seems a little bit too tall. Height of 42 looks good. So that's another interesting thing with auto layout is you can move things around very easily. It makes that very helpful. Now let's see how this would look like on an iPad. So I'm going to go back to the frames. I'm going to go to tablet, 12.9. So this is huge. So I'm going to have this as a reference. I'm going to duplicate this by holding Option and dragging on the parent frame of the iPhone. We're going to come back here and we're just going to copy the width and apply it here. And there you have it. This is what it would look like. And of course, there's some cleanup that we need to do here. That should be bumped up, things like that. But I hope this gives a good illustration of some of the powers that Figma has to really take your designs to the next level.